I came to my son-in-law's house for dinner. Comfort, wine, peace after arguments. It seemed that everything was returning to normal. But a call from the gardener shattered this illusion. Someone is walking around your house. When I got up to leave, my son-in-law grabbed my arm, too sharply, too confidently. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. The text message glowed on the phone resting against the dashboard. Dad, come at 7 p.m., not earlier. 15 minutes had passed since Milton sent it. 15 minutes of me sitting here 2 blocks from his house, engine idling, trying to decode what those 4 words actually meant. The last time I'd seen my son was 2 weeks ago. He'd come to my office with spreadsheets and projections, asking for $150,000. Not asking, demanding. When I said no, he called me selfish. Grace stood behind him in the doorway, arms crossed, nodding along like a Greek chorus of disappointment. The door slam echoed in my memory louder than it had in reality. Now this, an invitation, a specific time. I turned off the engine and checked my watch. 6:58. Close enough. I grabbed the wine bottle from the passenger seat, a Napa cab I'd spent 20 minutes selecting at the store, debating whether reconciliation deserved $40 or $60. I'd chosen $60. Peace offerings shouldn't feel cheap. The walk to Milton's front door took longer than it should have. Suburban Austin sprawled around me, all manicured lawns and 2-car garages. My son had done well for himself, at least on the surface. The house was a modern craftsman with clean lines and expensive landscaping. I'd helped with the down payment 5 years ago. That felt like a different lifetime. I raised my hand to knock. The door opened before my knuckles touched wood. DeWitt! Grace's smile stretched too wide, showing too many teeth. She pulled me into a hug that lasted 3 seconds too long. My first alarm bell, quiet but persistent. We're so happy you could make it. Wouldn't miss it. I handed her the wine, studying her face. She'd always been hard to read, but tonight something felt rehearsed about her warmth. Milton appeared behind her, hand extended. Dad, good to see you. His grip was firm enough to make a point. He led me through the foyer, past family photos I'd seen a dozen times, toward the dining room. Hope you're hungry. Grace has been cooking all day. The dining room stopped me mid-step. Candles flickered on a table set with cloth napkins folded into triangles. My favorite dishes, pot roast, roasted vegetables, fresh rolls, covered every available surface. The whole scene screamed professional staging, like an open house designed to sell a lifestyle rather than a home. This is quite a spread. I pulled out a chair, the wood scraping against hardwood floor. Special occasion? Grace moved to the wine bottle, already uncorking it with practiced efficiency. Family doesn't need an occasion. We just wanted to see you. It's been too long. 2 weeks. It had been exactly 2 weeks. But I nodded and accepted the glass she poured, watching her hands move with choreographed precision. Milton sat across from me, his energy too bright, too eager. They were performing something, and I was the only one without a script. So, Dad. Milton passed me the rolls, his casualness feeling anything but. How's the real estate market treating you? Still holding on to that hill country property? That hill country property. The 40 acres I'd bought 3 years ago as a retirement investment. Why would he mention that specifically? Business is steady. I broke a roll in half, steam rising from the soft interior. Why do you ask? Just curious. Making conversation. The response came too quickly, like he'd practiced it. I looked at Grace, who was adjusting a candle that didn't need adjusting. She met my eyes and smiled that stretched smile again. We're so glad you came tonight. She refilled my wine glass without asking if I wanted more. Family shouldn't fight over money, right? The word hung between us like smoke. Money. The thing that had broken us 2 weeks ago now being dismissed as trivial. I set down my fork, measuring my next words carefully. I've always believed family comes first. But that doesn't mean abandoning principles. Milton's jaw tightened, just a fraction, just for a second. But I'd spent 30 years reading faces across negotiation tables. I knew the look of someone holding cards they didn't want to show. Silence settled over the table, broken only by the scrape of silverware and the distant hum of the air conditioning. Grace cleared her throat. More wine, DeWitt? She was already pouring before I could answer. Her hands trembled slightly, sending tiny ripples across the dark liquid. Another false note in this carefully composed symphony. I ate because refusing would have been more suspicious than playing along. The pot roast was excellent. Grace had always been a skilled cook, but I tasted nothing. My mind was cataloging every glance they exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching, every question that felt like an interrogation dressed as small talk, every second that Milton checked his watch with increasing frequency. Something was happening here, something beyond a reconciliation dinner. I wanted to believe in the possibility of genuine forgiveness. I wanted to think my son had invited me here to rebuild what we'd broken, but I'd spent too many years reading people, understanding motivations, recognizing deception in the smallest gestures. This felt orchestrated, staged, timed. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The sensation was subtle, but Milton's eyes snapped toward the movement like a predator tracking prey, his face drained of color. Grace's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. I reached for my phone, moving with deliberate slowness, and their panic became palpable. The dining room suddenly felt smaller, the candlelight oppressive. My hand closed around the phone in my pocket, and in that instant, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever was happening here, it wasn't about reconciliation at all. My hand closed around the vibrating phone. Milton's eyes locked on that movement with naked panic. Grace's wine glass stopped midair, suspended like she'd been frozen mid-gesture. The dining room contracted around us. I pulled the phone out slowly, keeping my expression neutral, even as my pulse kicked up. The screen showed 2 texts from Carlos, my gardener. The first, "Mr. Owens, are you home?" The second made my blood turn to ice water. "I hear sounds from your house. See light in your study. Should I call the police?" I read both messages twice, then a third time, making absolutely certain I understood what I was seeing. Someone was in my house, right now, in my study, where I kept documents, financial records, the safe behind the bookshelf that held $20,000 in cash and my mother's jewelry. The chair scraped against the floor as I stood. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. "I need to leave. Now." Milton lunged across the table before I'd taken 2 steps. His hand clamped around my wrist with shocking force, fingers digging into the tendon. "Stop! Dad, wait. Just give it 5 minutes. Please, let me explain." I stared at his hand on my wrist, at the white pressure points where his grip was cutting off circulation, at my son physically restraining me while someone robbed my house. "Explain what, exactly?" My voice came out flat, drained of inflection. "Why you needed me here at precisely 7 o'clock. Why Grace keeps asking about my hill country property." His face told me everything, the confirmation I didn't want, but now couldn't deny. The careful mask he'd worn all evening shattered completely, replaced by something desperate and cornered. Grace moved to block the dining room exit. The gracious hostess had vanished entirely, leaving behind cold calculation in expensive clothing. "DeWitt, if you just sit down and listen. Move. Now." I used the voice I reserved for negotiations gone hostile, for deals where being polite had stopped serving a purpose. 3 decades of authority compressed into 2 syllables. Grace's eyes widened, but she didn't step aside. Milton's grip tightened on my wrist. "You don't understand the pressure we're under. The debts, the opportunity. You have so much, and we just needed—" "You needed to rob your own father?" I typed with my free hand, thumb moving across the screen. "Call the police now. I'm coming home." Carlos's response came immediately. "Already calling. Dad, please." Milton's voice cracked into something close to begging. "If you'd just given us the money when we asked, none of this would be necessary. You're sitting on hundreds of thousands in property and investments while we're drowning. What kind of father—" I wrenched my arm free with more force than necessary. His fingers left red marks on my wrist that would bruise by morning. The physical act of breaking his grip felt symbolic of something larger rupturing between us. What kind of son conspires to rob his father while pretending to make peace? I pushed past Grace, not roughly, but with enough determination that she had to choose between moving or being moved. She chose to step aside. Milton followed me into the hallway, still talking, still justifying. "The contractor we hired is a professional. He knows what he's doing. Nothing would be damaged. We'd pay you back with the business profits. You'd never even know if your gardener hadn't. I stopped at the front door, hand on the knob, and turned back one final time. I know exactly what's happening, and I know you did this. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with admission, with the weight of betrayal, fully acknowledged. No denials, just Milton's pale face and Grace's calculated stare, both of them understanding that the plan had collapsed completely. "If you report this," Grace started, her voice hard-edged now, all pretense abandoned. "I already have." I walked out, leaving the door open behind me. The cool night air hit my face like a slap, clearing away the artificial warmth of their staged dinner. My car waited at the curb where I'd parked it an hour ago. A different man had locked that door. A different man had walked up that sidewalk, carrying wine and hope. 23 minutes to my house if I broke speed limits. I calculated it automatically as I started the engine, muscle memory from 30 years of driving these roads. The phone sat on the passenger seat, Carlos's messages still glowing on the screen. I pulled away from the curb, watching Milton's house shrink in the rearview mirror. The porch light illuminated two figures standing in the doorway. Neither waved. My hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. Again. But this time the pain felt clarifying rather than anxious. The pieces had fallen into place with terrible precision. The specific timing. The probing questions. The performance of reconciliation masking something darker. They'd made their choice. Orchestrated this entire evening. Used family as camouflage for theft. Believed I'd be stupid enough, or trusting enough, or desperate enough for reconciliation that I wouldn't see through their theater. They'd been wrong. The drive stretched ahead of me. 23 minutes of dark highway and suburban sprawl. But my mind was already at the house, already cataloging what would need to happen next. Police reports, insurance claims, evidence documentation, legal proceedings. This wasn't about anger anymore. Anger was hot and immediate and temporary. What crystallized in me during that drive was colder and more permanent. They'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, made a calculation that I'd be too soft to respond with appropriate force. They didn't know me as well as they thought. The phone buzzed again. "Carlos, police are here. Caught someone inside. Waiting for you." I read the message twice, then set the phone back down on the passenger seat. Taillights from other cars blurred past. The speedometer crept upward. My wrist throbbed where Milton had grabbed it. 20 minutes to go. 19. 18. They'd made their choice. Now I'd make mine. Red and blue lights painted my house in accusatory colors. 2 police cruisers sat in the driveway, their strobes turning everything stark and surreal. I pulled in behind them, killing the engine but staying seated for a moment, hands still locked on the wheel. Carlos stood on the front lawn, phone clutched in both hands like a talisman, his face flooded with relief when he saw me. The front door stood open, not kicked in, not forced, just open like someone had walked out casually after finishing a task. That casual violation cut deeper than any forced entry would have. "Mr. Owens," Carlos met me halfway across the lawn. "I'm so sorry I didn't call sooner. I thought maybe you came home early, that the lights were you." "You did exactly right." I gripped his shoulder briefly. "Thank you for calling when you did. What I didn't say, if you'd called 30 minutes earlier, I'd still have illusions about my son." An officer emerged from the house, notepad in hand. Mid-40s, Hispanic woman with sharp eyes and an air of competent authority. "Mr. Owens, I'm Officer Linda Martinez. We've secured the premises and begun documenting the scene. I'll need you to walk through with me, identify what's missing." I followed her inside. Each room felt like visiting a familiar place, rendered foreign by violation. The living room looked untouched, kitchen undisturbed. But in the bedroom, my dresser drawers hung open at odd angles. The jewelry box my mother had given me sat empty on the nightstand, its velvet interior exposed like an open wound. Silver service set from the dining room cabinet. I kept my voice level, professional. $8,500 value. 3 watches from the bedroom safe, a Rolex Submariner, an Omega Seamaster, a vintage Patek Philippe. 23,000 combined. Officer Martinez wrote without looking up. "The bedroom safe. Was it forced?" "No. Combination lock. untouched. I moved to the study where Carlos had seen the light. My desk had been rifled through with systematic efficiency. Jewelry pieces, approximately 15,000. Various documents. What kind of documents? I opened the wall safe behind the bookshelf. The door swung freely. I'd never changed the combination in 12 years. Inside, gaps marked where items should have been. Property deed for my hill country land. 40 acres, purchased in 2022. Current value approximately $890,000. Backup keys to my safety deposit box. Various legal papers. Her pen stopped moving. Someone stole property documents? They did. Mr. Owens, the back door shows professional entry work. Lock-picked, not forced. You have enemies? Business competitors with grudges? I'm a real estate agent. I closed the safe door carefully. Everyone has competitors. But no enemies. Not until tonight, anyway. She showed me the back door. The lock cylinder bore fine scratches around the keyhole. Precise work, not the crude gouging of amateur attempts. Someone who knew what they were doing. Someone who'd hired someone who knew what they were doing. Any idea who might have access to your security system? Officer Martinez tapped her pen against her notepad. It was disabled, not cut, not bypassed, properly shut down from inside. I paused, considered. I'd need to check my visitor logs. I'll send you a list tomorrow. I already knew. I wouldn't share it. Not yet. The police stayed until nearly 2 a.m. Photographs, fingerprint powder, forms to sign. Carlos gave his statement and left around midnight, apologizing again, which I waved off. By the time the cruisers pulled away, the neighborhood was dark and silent. I sat alone in my study, laptop glowing in the darkness. The security system kept detailed logs. Every arm, every disarm, every entry and exit. I pulled up February 20th, 5 days ago. Milton's casual visit that I'd barely remembered. 2:47 p.m., system disabled. User, Milton Owens. He'd come over for coffee. We'd talked about nothing important. Weather, basketball, whether I'd tried that new barbecue place on South Congress. 45 minutes of pleasant conversation. He'd hugged me when he left. He'd smiled, hugged me, and disabled my security system. I watched that timestamp for a long time. Watched it blur slightly as my exhaustion caught up with involuntary reactions. My hand trembled when I reached for the cold coffee beside the keyboard. My phone buzzed. Again, I'd been ignoring it for hours. 17 missed calls from Milton. 12 text messages from Grace, each more desperate than the last. Dad, please call me. We need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding. You're not answering, and I'm worried. Dad, please. I scrolled through them with clinical detachment. Then I opened Milton's contact information, held my thumb over his name for 3 long seconds. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages. I pressed block contact. The screen asked me to confirm. My thumb hovered over block for perhaps a heartbeat. I pressed it. Then I found Rebecca Thornton's business card in my desk drawer. We'd worked together on a complex commercial closing 5 years ago, a contentious deal where having a sharp attorney had made the difference between profit and disaster. Her card read, Rebecca Thornton, Estate Planning and Asset Protection. I dialed her number. It went to voicemail. Professional recording, efficient and concise. Rebecca, this is DeWitt Owens. We worked the Riverside Plaza deal in 2020. I need to discuss estate protection urgently, not planning. Protection. Call me when you can. My voice carried no emotion, just business necessity. I set the phone down on top of the security log printout. Dawn was still hours away. The house felt too large around me, too empty. Every space reminding me of what had been taken, and more painfully, who had taken it. But I didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't break. I just sat in the darkness, making lists. What was gone? What was vulnerable? What needed protection? The transformation wasn't complete, but it had begun. The phone rang at 11:30. I was still in my study, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The coffee beside me had gone cold hours ago. Financial documents covered every inch of desk space. Asset summaries, account statements, insurance policies. I'd been working since dawn, cataloging everything that could be touched, taken, or compromised. Rebecca Thornton's name lit up the screen. I answered on the first ring. Rebecca. DeWitt. Her voice carried the brisk warmth of a professional who recognized genuine urgency. I got your message. You said protection, not planning. What happened? Can you meet this afternoon? 2 o'clock, my office downtown. I'll be there. No pleasantries, no small talk. Just the efficiency of two people who understood that time mattered. The drive to downtown Austin took 20 minutes. I used them to rehearse how to present facts without emotion, details without drama. Rebecca's firm occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower near the Capitol. Premium office space for premium legal work. Her office was exactly as I remembered. Clean lines, professional neutrality, a wall of legal volumes behind her desk that probably hadn't been opened in years, but conveyed the right message. She stood when I entered, handshake firm, eyes already assessing. Tell me what happened. I spread documents across her conference table. Security logs, police report copy, list of stolen items, asset summary I'd prepared during the sleepless night. Everything organized, labeled, cross-referenced. 2 weeks ago, my son asked me for $150,000. I refused. Last night, he invited me to dinner with specific timing instructions. While I was there, someone entered my house and stole approximately $940,000 in property and assets, including the deed to my hill country land. Rebecca studied the security log. Your son disabled your alarm system 5 days before the theft. During a casual visit, coffee and conversation. And the dinner was deliberate timing to keep you away from the house. Not a question. Yes, she sat back, fingers steepled. You haven't filed charges against him? Not yet. Why not? I met her eyes. Because I want to understand the full scope first. Protect what's left, then decide how to proceed. Rebecca nodded slowly. Smart. Angry people make mistakes. You're not angry, are you? I'm past that. She pulled a legal pad toward her, began writing. 3 immediate concerns. First, your current will. Who's your primary beneficiary? Milton. That changes today. Second, your assets are exposed. Third, those property documents weren't stolen for souvenirs. With your deed and access to your personal information, signature samples, ID numbers, he could forge a property transfer or take out loans against that land before you realize what's happening. My stomach tightened. How would I know if he's already tried? County clerk records would show any filed documents. She was already typing on her laptop. What county is the property in? Blanco. Her fingers flew across keys. Silence stretched for 30 seconds. Then her expression hardened. Someone attempted to access your property records online yesterday. Failed authentication, but they tried. The cold in my chest crystallized into something sharper. Could you tell who? No, just that someone used your name and tried 3 different signature variations to access the account. She closed the laptop. We need to move fast. I'm recommending a 3-part strategy. 1. File a new will immediately, removing Milton entirely. Name a professional executor. My firm can handle that if you want neutral parties. 2. Create a revocable living trust to shield your assets from potential legal claims. 3. Document everything for potential criminal prosecution. How long? New will we can draft today and execute tomorrow with witnesses. Trust documents take longer. 48 hours minimum. Priority processing. I'll need complete asset valuations. I have preliminary numbers. Preliminary isn't good enough for this. You need professional appraisals establishing legal value for everything. Real estate, vehicles, investments, personal property. She checked her calendar. I can have an appraiser at your house tomorrow afternoon. This will take most of a day. Whatever it takes. Rebecca looked at me with something like approval. Most people in your position want revenge. You want protection first. Revenge is an emotion. I need justice. That requires planning. Then let's build your fortress. The next 5 days became a blur of systematic action. Meetings with appraisers who photographed and cataloged every asset. Sessions with Rebecca reviewing trust structures and tax implications. Visits to the notary's office for witnessed signatures. Forms filed with the county clerk, the state registry, the IRS. I changed every password, every security code, every account access method. My bank issued new cards. My investment firm set up 2-factor authentication. The alarm company installed a completely new system with codes only I knew. Through it all, my phone buzzed constantly with ignored calls. Milton's number blocked, tried from other numbers. Grace's cell, their landline, unknown numbers that had to be friends' phones. Text messages piled up on Grace's thread. This is ridiculous. We need to talk like adults. You're being dramatic. Think about what you're doing. You're going to regret this. I read them with detachment. Documented them. Saved screenshots. Never responded. On February 26th, Rebecca called to confirm the final documents had been filed. Your assets are inside a trust that Milton can't access. Your will names my firm as executor. Everything's locked down. How do you feel? Defended. I sat in my study, newly signed documents in a folder before me. But that's not enough. What do you mean? I've built the walls. Now I need to understand what I'm defending against. I need to know the full scope of what Milton planned. That sounds like you want an investigation. Do you know anyone who does financial forensics? I do. She gave me a name, a number. But DeWitt, be careful. Once you start pulling threads, you might not like what unravels. I don't like any of this, but I need the truth. After we hung up, I looked at the business card Rebecca had given me for the forensic analyst, then at my phone where Grace's latest text glowed on the screen. You're going to regret this. I picked up a pen, pulled a legal pad toward me, wrote in careful block letters. What else did they plan? The question sat on the page like a challenge. I'd built my defenses, protected what remained. Now it was time to understand exactly what I was at war against. The coffee shop was deliberately neutral territory, not my home, not my office. The hideout, tucked into downtown Austin near the financial district, where nobody would recognize me or care about the conversation at the corner table. Jennifer Huang arrived exactly on time, laptop bag over her shoulder, business attire that said former federal investigator, more clearly than any introduction. Rebecca had vouched for her. Former IRS, now private sector, reputation for unraveling complex financial schemes with the same precision others might use to solve crossword puzzles. Mr. Owens? Her handshake was firm, professional, no sympathy in her eyes, which I appreciated, just assessment. I slid a folder across the table. Everything I know about my son's business plans. Bank information from when I was listed as emergency contact. That access lapsed months ago, but you'll have starting points. Employment history. The loan applications he wanted me to co-sign. She flipped through without speaking, absorbing information the way a scanner reads documents. Your son asked you to co-sign a business loan? 4 months ago, I declined. Smart. She looked up. Your son's in deep trouble financially. This loan structure screams desperation. How deep? $250,000 in total debt counting credit cards and the business loan. That's pressure. I kept my voice level. Enough pressure to rob your father? People do worse for less. She closed the folder. What exactly do you want me to find? Everything. The full scope of what he planned. Whether he's already committed to expenses. Who else knew? What he intended to do with my property. That'll take time. I have time. What I need is certainty. She nodded once. I'll send progress reports via encrypted email. Give me 2 weeks. The first report arrived 3 days later. Dense financial documentation. Bank statements obtained through legal channels I didn't ask about. Loan papers bearing Milton's signature. The loan amount, $180,000 at 18% interest. Predatory rates that legitimate lenders wouldn't touch. The second report came a week in. This one included lease agreements. Premium office space in Austin's tech corridor. $8,500 monthly rent for 3 years. Signed February 10th, 10 days before the theft. First month, last month, security deposit, $25,500. Due immediately. Can you trace whether he'd committed to expenses before the theft? I asked during our second meeting, back at the same coffee shop. Already done. Jennifer turned her laptop toward me. Office lease signed February 10th. First month's rent plus deposit, $25,000. He was pot committed before he stole from you. The words hung there. Pot committed. Betting everything on a plan that required my money to work. The third report was the most damning. Jennifer had traced Grace's activities through auction house databases. Your daughter-in-law contacted 3 high-end antique dealers over the past month, requested appraisals for recently inherited items. She showed me the list. Silver service set, Georgian style, 12 place settings, 3 collectible watches, specific makes and models, jewelry pieces described down to the setting styles, my stolen items, down to the smallest details. All inquiries made before the theft. One dealer was willing to talk. Jennifer slid a business card across the table. Morris Chen, 30 years in the business. He sensed something wrong when Grace asked about minimizing documentation. I called him that afternoon from my study. Phone set to record. Texas is a one-party consent state. I could use this. Mr. Chen, DeWitt Owens, I understand my daughter-in-law contacted you about some silver. His voice was careful, cautious. I'm not certain I should discuss client inquiries. She was asking about items stolen from my home. I have the police report if you'd like the case number. Silence. Then, stolen? 3 weeks ago. The young woman was very specific about the silver pattern. His tone shifted, helpful now, cooperative. Georgian style, 1820s, 12 place settings. Asked if we could liquidate quickly without auction publicity. Did she mention where she got it? Said it was from a deceased relative's estate. I asked for provenance documentation. She never followed up. I thanked him, ended the call, saved the recording. Another piece of documented evidence. By March 10th, I had Jennifer's final report. Comprehensive. Devastating. She'd outlined the complete plan. Milton takes out high-risk loan. Signs office lease requiring immediate capital. Realizes his father won't provide funding. Plans theft coordinated with distraction dinner. Steals property documents intending to forge signature on transfer forms. Sells land to predetermined buyer, probably someone who'd flip it immediately. Disappears $890,000 into business account. Repays loan. Funds operation. Father discovers theft too late to prevent property sale. Your son planned to forge your signature on property transfer documents, sell to a predetermined buyer, and disappear the money into his business account. Classic asset conversion. Jennifer's expression remained neutral, professional. You can prove this? I can show motive, opportunity, and preparation. That's prosecutor-level evidence. I spread everything across my desk that evening. Evidence folders organized by category. Financial desperation. Premeditation. Conspiracy. Intent to defraud. Each folder thick with documentation. Bank statements. Lease agreements. Recorded conversations. Auction house correspondence. He didn't just steal. He calculated, planned, prepared contingencies. Send everything to Rebecca Thornton, I told Jennifer during our final call. Keep your original files secure. We'll need this. I closed the last folder, stacked them neatly on my desk. The phone buzzed. Milton calling from yet another number. I watched it ring, the name unknown caller, glowing on the screen, knowing it was him, knowing he was desperate enough to keep trying. I didn't answer, but this time I didn't block it either. Instead, I set the phone down on top of the evidence folders, letting it vibrate against the documented proof of his betrayal. The folder beneath it read, Asset Conversion and Fraud. M. Owens. Call all you want, I said to the empty room. When we talk, it'll be on my terms. The phone went silent. Outside, dusk settled over Austin. The city lights came on one by one, methodical and inevitable. I'd built my defenses, gathered my evidence. Now I just needed to wait for Milton's next move. It wouldn't be long. 5 days of silence. No return calls. No acknowledged texts. No response to emails. Milton's desperation must have reached critical mass, because on Saturday afternoon, I heard his car pull into my driveway. I'd been expecting this. I met him at the door before he could knock. He stood on the porch, Grace behind him, both of them looking like they'd rehearsed their approach. Grace wore a concerned expression that would have been convincing if I hadn't heard her recorded voice asking antique dealers about discreet sales. Dad, Milton's voice carried false patience, like he was dealing with a difficult child. We need to talk. You can't just ignore us forever. I'm not ignoring you. I'm choosing not to engage. That's the same thing. No. I kept my hand on the doorframe, body blocking entry. Ignoring implies unconscious avoidance. This is deliberate choice. Grace stepped forward, touching Milton's arm in what she probably thought was a calming gesture. DeWitt, please. We're family. Whatever you think happened, I don't think anything. I know. I looked at her directly. Tell me about Morris Chen. Her face went carefully blank. Who? Antique dealer. You contacted him 4 weeks ago about a Georgian silver set. Asked about minimizing documentation for estate sales. Ring any bells? The careful blankness cracked slightly. Milton's eyes cut toward her, sharp and questioning. I don't know what you're talking about, but her voice had gone tight. I have the recording. He was very helpful once I explained the items you described were stolen from my home. Milton's jaw tightened. You're recording conversations without people knowing? Texas is a one-party consent state, completely legal. I know because Rebecca Thornton explained it before I called Mr. Chen. Rebecca Thornton? Milton's tone sharpened. You hired an attorney? Weeks ago, and a financial analyst, and changed my will, and created a trust that neither of you can touch. I watched him process each revelation, watched his face pale. Your office lease in the tech corridor? $8,500 a month. You signed it February 10th, 10 days before you robbed me. That's not... We didn't... He stopped, recalibrating. We borrowed. We were going to pay you back. By forging my signature on property transfer documents. His silence was confirmation enough. Grace shifted tactics, stepping forward with hands raised in supplication. You're our family, our only family. Do you know what it's like to watch you sit on all this wealth while we're drowning? You have everything, and we have nothing. You have jobs. You have this house. I gestured toward Milton's Acura in the driveway. You have choices. What you don't have is entitlement to my assets. We're your son, Milton's voice cracked upward. Your only child. What kind of father cuts off his own? The kind whose son disabled his security system while sharing coffee and small talk. The kind whose son planned to steal nearly $1 million in property. The kind who recognizes betrayal when it's documented in detail. Grace's concerned expression evaporated completely, replaced by something colder. If you pursue this legally, you'll regret it. We'll fight. We'll file suit for elder abuse, improper coercion regarding your will. Please do. I kept my voice conversational. Rebecca would love to enter my financial analyst's report into evidence. Complete documentation of your conspiracy. Grace's auction house contacts. Morris Chen's testimony. The timeline showing premeditation. Milton took a step closer, anger replacing desperation. You're destroying your family over money. No, you destroyed it when you chose theft over honesty. When you hugged me goodbye after disabling my alarm. When Grace smiled at me across the dinner table while someone was in my house stealing my mother's jewelry. We needed... I don't care what you needed. The words came out harder than I'd intended, but I didn't soften them. You made choices. Calculated choices. Now, live with the consequences. Fine. Grace's voice had gone flat, businesslike. We'll see what a judge thinks about an old man changing his will under suspicious circumstances. Mental competency evaluations can reveal a lot. Yes, they can. They'd reveal I'm a successful commercial real estate agent with no cognitive decline, perfect memory, and documentation explaining exactly why I disinherited my thieving son. Milton's hands clenched into fists at his sides, not threatening, just impotent rage seeking expression. You're going to die alone, you know that? Bitter and alone. And I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember choosing your property over your family. I'll remember the moment you chose to rob me instead of accepting my decision. I stepped back, hand on the door. We're done here. Dad, please. Milton's voice cracked again, shifting back toward pleading. Don't. I held up one hand. Don't try that now. You showed me who you are. I believe you. I closed the door, locked it, stood there listening to muffled voices on the porch, Milton and Grace arguing in sharp whispers. Then footsteps, car doors, engine starting, the Acura pulling away. I walked to the living room window, watched them disappear around the corner. A neighbor walking their dog waved tentatively. They'd probably heard the shouting. I waved back. My phone was already in my hand. Rebecca answered on the second ring. DeWitt, how did it go? Exactly as predicted. He's threatening a competency lawsuit. Predictable. She didn't sound concerned. Let him try. It'll backfire spectacularly. That's what I'm counting on. I moved away from the window, back to my study where the evidence folders still sat on my desk. We need to discuss next steps. Milton just made this much easier. How so? I picked up the folder labeled Financial Desperation, flipped through Jennifer's documentation. He came here angry, desperate, threatening, showed exactly who he is when cornered. If he actually files suit, we'll have his baseless legal claims on record, alongside our documented evidence of his crimes. Building a pattern of behavior. Exactly. I'll draft our response strategy. Papers rustled on her end. And DeWitt, you did well. Maintaining boundaries while they try to manipulate takes discipline. They stopped being family when they started planning the theft. Still, not everyone could maintain that level of control. After we hung up, I sat at my desk in the quiet house. Outside, afternoon shifted toward evening. The evidence folders sat before me, organized and ready. Milton had made his move, shown his hand, escalated rather than retreated, which was exactly what I needed him to do. The summons arrived on a Monday morning. I sat at my kitchen table, reading it twice to make sure I understood what Milton had actually done. Petition for determination of mental competency and appointment of conservator. He'd filed it, actually filed a lawsuit claiming I was mentally incompetent to manage my own affairs. The allegations were predictable: irrational financial decisions, age-related cognitive decline, vulnerability to exploitation. I set the document down carefully and called Rebecca. She answered immediately. You got the summons. An hour ago. How do you feel? Amused. I picked up the petition again, scanning the legal language. He's claiming I'm incompetent because I changed my will and created a trust. That's not irrational. That's standard estate planning. The petition is frivolous. Papers rustled on her end. But we need to take it seriously. I'll start preparing our defense. Can you come in today? I'll be there in an hour. Good. DeWitt, this is going to backfire on him spectacularly. I drove to her office with a folder I'd prepared weeks ago. Recent real estate transactions, client testimonials, financial statements. I'd anticipated this move. Milton was predictable when cornered. Rebecca spread my documents across her conference table alongside the petition. Here's our strategy. First, we arrange for you to undergo independent psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Patricia Westmore, forensic psychiatrist, respected expert, unimpeachable credentials. Second, we compile documentation of your active career and recent successful deals. Third, we prepare for the hearing. And fourth, she looked up, expression sharp. We use the hearing to formally file theft allegations against Milton, turning his attack into our platform. Exactly. Can we use it against him? I'd asked that question days ago. Now I had the answer. The psychiatric evaluation took place over 2 sessions in early April. Dr. Westmore's office was clinical and neutral. Leather chairs, certificates on the wall, assessment materials organized on her desk. She was professional, methodical, treating the evaluation like a scientific procedure rather than a personal judgment. Mr. Owens, why do you think your son filed this petition? I kept my voice measured. Because I removed him from my will after he coordinated the theft of my property. He's trying to regain control through the courts. She made notes without looking up. That's a coherent, logical assessment. The tests covered memory, reasoning, judgment, financial understanding. I answered each question with the same professional focus I'd use for a complex real estate negotiation. This wasn't personal. It was documentation. Her report arrived a week later. Rebecca read the relevant section over the phone. Mr. Owens demonstrates no cognitive impairment. Scores above average for his age group on all assessments. Exhibits excellent judgment and reasoning capabilities. The competency challenge has no medical basis. That should be sufficient. More than sufficient. The hearing is scheduled for April 18th. Be there at 9. The courthouse on that Tuesday morning was exactly as I remembered from decades of real estate closings. Institutional beige, fluorescent lighting, the quiet efficiency of legal machinery. I arrived 30 minutes early in my professional attire. Suit, tie, polished shoes. The same clothes I'd wear to close a $1 million deal. Milton sat across the aisle with his attorney, a younger man I didn't recognize, probably charging significant fees for a weak case. Grace wasn't there. Smart. Her presence would have been a liability. Milton wouldn't meet my eyes. Judge Margaret Harrison called the hearing to order. Mid-50s, efficient demeanor, the look of someone who'd seen every variation of family drama. Milton's attorney presented first, arguing that my drastic estate changes indicated impaired judgment. Rebecca responded crisply. Or it suggests appropriate response to criminal behavior. Mr. Owens, please tell the court about February 15th. I stood, took the witness stand, and spoke clearly. Factually, no emotion, just chronology. My son disabled my home security system during a visit, then kept me at dinner while someone stole property documents, family heirlooms, and financial records. The timing was coordinated. The police have evidence. Judge Harrison looked at Milton. Is there a criminal investigation active? Yes, Your Honor. Milton's attorney tried to redirect. These are unproven allegations, documented with security footage, financial analysis, and witness statements. Rebecca placed Dr. Westmore's report before the judge. Mr. Owens has been independently evaluated. No cognitive impairment. No judgment deficits. This petition is baseless. The judge reviewed the psychiatric report in silence. When she looked up, her expression had hardened. Petition dismissed. Mr. Owens demonstrates clear competence. This hearing is concluded. 15 minutes. The entire proceeding took 15 minutes. I stood, straightened my jacket, and followed Rebecca into the hallway. Milton and his attorney remained seated, the younger man probably calculating how to explain this failure. That went well. Rebecca kept her voice neutral. As expected. I checked my watch. I have another meeting. The detective. Yes? Detective Carlos Rodriguez waited in the courthouse parking garage, leaning against an unmarked sedan. Early 40s, sharp-eyed, the bearing of someone who'd worked enough cases to recognize when something was more than it appeared. Mr. Owens, you said you had additional information? I handed him 3 folders. Financial investigation. Security footage showing my son's access. Witness statement from an antique dealer my daughter-in-law contacted about selling stolen items before the theft occurred. He opened the first folder, scanning Jennifer Huang's report. You hired a private investigator? Financial analyst. Everything was obtained legally. Rodriguez flipped pages, his expression shifting from interested to focused. You're saying your son orchestrated this? I'm saying the evidence shows coordination, premeditation, and intent to defraud. The documentation is comprehensive. This changes everything. He closed the folder. We're opening a felony case. Theft over $30,000. That's second degree in Texas. We'll need you to come in for a formal statement. I'm available whenever you need me. He looked at me with something approaching respect. Most victims aren't this prepared. Most victims don't have time to prepare properly. I turned toward my car. I did. The criminal investigation became public record within 3 days. Court filings are public in Texas. Anyone searching Milton's name would find it. Theft allegations, coordinated robbery, felony investigation pending. By the end of that week, I'd made 3 phone calls. Not to Milton, to people who could make his already desperate situation impossible. I started with the office lease. Thomas Brennan owned the building where Milton had signed his 3-year commitment. We'd worked together on 2 commercial deals over the past decade, professional relationship built on mutual respect and successful closures. I called him from my study on a Friday afternoon. Thomas DeWitt Owens, how are things? Busy as always. What can I do for you? Nothing urgent, just wanted to mention something you should know. One of your tenants, Milton Owens, Suite 412, is currently under criminal investigation for felony theft. Public record, court filings available. Silence. Then, that's your son. Yes. And you're telling me this because? Because you have a business to protect. What you do with the information is your decision. I kept my tone neutral, factual. I thought you'd want to know before making decisions about lease renewals or payment arrangements. Appreciated. His voice had shifted to business calculation. I'll look into it. The lease had a standard clause about criminal conduct affecting tenancy. Thomas would find it. He'd act on it. Not because I asked him to, but because protecting his property values was smart business. The second call went to Karen Voss at First Capital Bank. Not Milton's loan officer. She'd never discussed client information with me, but the compliance department. Public service reporting. Ms. Voss, I'm calling to report publicly available information regarding a loan holder who may be involved in criminal activity. Case number is available through Travis County court records. Professional, factual, legal. Banks have automatic protocols for loan holders under felony investigation. Risk assessment triggers. Mandatory reviews. Milton's high-interest loan already flagged him as high risk. Add criminal investigation, and the algorithms would do the rest. The third call was more delicate. Andrew Chen, commercial real estate attorney, who'd referred several clients to Milton over the past year. We'd closed deals together, knew each other's reputations. I met him for coffee downtown. Andrew, appreciate you making time. Always. What's on your mind? I slid a folder across the table. My son's under criminal investigation for theft, financial fraud, coordinated robbery. The court records are public. I thought you should know before referring more clients his way. He didn't open the folder immediately, just looked at me, assessing. You're torpedoing your own son. I'm providing factual information to protect your clients. What you do with it is your choice. Why tell me this? Because you value your reputation, and your clients trust your referrals. If Milton's business collapses under criminal charges, everyone connected to him gets splattered. I'm giving you a chance to step back before that happens. He opened the folder, read the first page, closed it. I appreciate the heads up. Professional courtesy. Andrew Chen stopped referring clients within the week. Word spreads in professional networks. Not gossip, just risk management. People protecting their businesses, their reputations, their clients. Milton's business inquiries dried up, his scheduled consultations canceled, his pipeline emptied. The bank's automated review triggered on April 30th. I didn't know the exact timing. I didn't need to. The mechanisms were predictable. High-risk borrower plus criminal investigation equals loan acceleration clause. Standard practice. Milton received notice that his $180,000 loan was being called. Full repayment required within 30 days. Impossible for someone with no income stream, mounting debts, and a collapsing business. Thomas Brennan invoked the lease termination clause on May 5th. Criminal investigation affecting property reputation, tenant failure to maintain business operations, breach of lease terms. Milton had 30 days to vacate. I didn't contact Milton, didn't gloat, didn't explain. I just watched the dominoes fall with the same professional detachment I'd used to monitor a complex closing. Each piece moving exactly as predicted, each consequence flowing naturally from the one before. By mid-May, Milton had no office, no active loan, no client pipeline, no income source. Grace stopped posting on social media. Their house went up for sale, not by choice but necessity. Mortgage payments stopped being theoretical when there's no money coming in. I sat in my study one evening, late May, reviewing the timeline I'd kept. February, the theft. March, legal protections established. April, competency challenge dismissed, criminal investigation opened. May, business structure collapsed. Efficient, precise, complete. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Dad! Milton's voice was rough, exhausted. Please, we need to talk. Just you and me. I said nothing. Let the silence stretch. I'll come to you. Tomorrow morning. I'm asking. Please. I considered. This was the moment I'd been engineering for months. Milton stripped of leverage, of options, of dignity, coming to beg because he had nowhere else to turn. 10 o'clock, front porch. Don't bring Grace. I hung up before he could respond, set the phone down on my desk beside the evidence folders that had built this moment, piece by documented piece. Tomorrow morning, Milton would arrive at my door with nothing left but desperation, and I would be ready. Milton's car pulled into my driveway at exactly 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning in early June. I stood on the front porch, arms crossed, door closed behind me. The same position as our last confrontation, but everything had changed since then. He emerged alone. No Grace, no allies, no leverage. He looked hollowed out, unshaven, wrinkled shirt, shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and mounting panic. The bank's 30-day deadline was 9 days away. June 15th. $180,000 due in full. Impossible. He approached slowly, climbing the porch steps like each one required deliberate effort. I waited. Let silence be my first weapon. Dad, his voice cracked slightly. I'm sorry. I made terrible mistakes. I was desperate and stupid, and I'm sorry. Please, just help me. I'm your son. I let the silence stretch. 5 seconds. 10. Watching him fidget, watching him wait, watching him realize I wasn't going to make this easy. You were my son. Then you became a thief who targeted his own father. I know, and I... He stopped, regrouped. I'll return the things I still have. The watches, some of the jewelry. I'll make payments on the rest. Just ask the prosecutor to drop the charges. Please. I walked into the house without speaking. Milton's expression flickered between hope and confusion. I returned 30 seconds later with a document I'd prepared 3 days ago. I'd known this conversation would come. Read this. He took it, scanning the first page. His face cycled through hope, understanding, and then anger as comprehension settled in. Public confession? Waive all inheritance? You want me to humiliate myself? I want you to take responsibility. Confess to what you did. Return what you can. Accept that you'll never profit from my death. Do that, and I won't push for prison time. You're asking me to destroy my reputation for your satisfaction. His voice rose. You're cruel, manipulative. You're the one tearing this family apart. I'm offering you a choice between consequences. Reduced consequences if you accept responsibility. Full consequences if you don't. You have 48 hours. He crumpled the document in his fist, threw it onto the porch floor. I won't do it. I won't let you make me the villain when you're destroying your own son over a mistake. Over money. That's what this comes down to. You value property more than family. No, you valued property over family. You planned it, executed it, and now you're facing the results. I'm just declining to save you from them. I hate you. The words came out flat, factual. I hope you know that. I hope you remember it. I'll remember that you chose pride over pragmatism. I picked up the crumpled document, smoothing it against my leg. 48 hours. After that, the offer expires. He walked away, didn't run, didn't storm off dramatically, just walked to his car with the defeated posture of someone who'd lost everything and still couldn't admit why. I watched him drive away, then went inside and filed the crumpled document in my study. Evidence that I'd offered mercy. Evidence that he'd rejected it. Then I called Rebecca. It's done, he refused. Scheduled a foundation meeting. You're certain about this? I've never been more certain about anything. Grace's rumor campaign started the same week. Mutual acquaintances called. Subtle questions about family troubles and whether I was being too harsh on Milton over minor disagreements. The social manipulation was transparent. Paint DeWitt as the cruel old man, Milton as the victim of paternal vindictiveness. It didn't work. The criminal investigation was public record. Anyone with internet access could find the court filings, the theft allegations, the evidence documentation. DeWitt Owens had 3 decades of reputation in Austin's business community. Grace had a month-old narrative that contradicted documented facts. Reality won. 3 weeks later, I sat in the foundation attorney's office. Rebecca was there, along with 2 accountants and a specialist in charitable trust structures. The conference table was covered with documents, property titles, investment account transfers, liquid asset assignments. This is permanent, Rebecca said, not for the first time. Once you sign, these assets belong to the foundation. You can't reclaim them. I understand. You're transferring everything. $2.1 million in total assets. You'll live on your current income and whatever you generate going forward. But the accumulated wealth, it's gone from your personal estate. I want everything transferred. Property, investments, accounts, everything. The foundation will provide scholarships for young entrepreneurs who demonstrate integrity. People who build businesses honestly. The attorney slid the final document across the table. Irrevocable transfer of assets. Owens Entrepreneurship Foundation. I signed. The notary stamped. It was done. Rebecca looked at me with something between respect and curiosity. You've just permanently disinherited your son. I've just ensured my assets will help people who deserve them. I stood, collecting my copies. How's the criminal case progressing? Trial's scheduled for August. The prosecutor's confident. I nodded once. Good. I left the office and drove home through Austin's afternoon heat, the signed documents on the passenger seat. The foundation was established. The scholarships would launch in fall. Young entrepreneurs with solid business plans and demonstrable character would receive funding to start honest ventures. Milton would receive nothing. Not from my estate, not from any future inheritance, not from any legal maneuvering he might attempt. The foundation structure was ironclad. I'd built something permanent from the ruins of our relationship, something that would outlast both of us, help people who'd never heard of Milton or his betrayal, create value where he'd tried to destroy it. The next morning I returned to work. A commercial property showing for a potential client. Contract negotiations on a retail space lease. Normal business activities that had nothing to do with revenge or justice or family drama. Life continuing, as it does, regardless of what burns down behind you. The trial concluded on a Thursday in mid-August. Milton pled to reduce charges. The prosecutor couldn't prove every element of the original felony theft, but there was enough for conviction on criminal trespass and theft of property over $30,000. The judge wasn't sympathetic. I sat in the courtroom gallery, third row back, watching the sentencing. Rebecca sat beside me, professional and silent. Milton stood before the bench with his attorney, shoulders hunched, that same defeated posture from our porch confrontation. "Mr. Owens," Judge Harrison's voice carried the weight of considered judgment. "You orchestrated a theft against your own father. You violated his home, his security, his trust. The court finds no mitigating factors that excuse such calculated betrayal." She sentenced him to 3 years supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, and $50,000 in restitution. No prison time. First offense, full guilty plea, agreement to pay restitution. But the conviction would stand, permanently. "Probation violation will result in incarceration," the judge added. "You'll report to your probation officer weekly. Any new offenses, any failure to meet conditions, and you'll serve the suspended sentence. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." Grace wasn't in the courtroom. She'd filed for divorce in July. The papers served while Milton was preparing for trial. Pragmatic move, protecting herself from his legal and financial liabilities, getting out before the collapse was complete. Smart woman. Just used her intelligence for the wrong purposes. The professional consequences followed automatically. Milton's real estate license was revoked. His IT consulting certifications were suspended. Professional associations expelled him. Standard procedures for criminal convictions in licensed fields. By September, he'd moved into a small apartment in North Austin, working retail to cover living expenses while paying restitution. The house sold for less than the mortgage balance. Grace moved to Houston for a fresh start with someone she'd probably been seeing for months. The criminal investigation wrapped up. Detective Rodriguez closed the case file with a note of satisfaction. These types of family theft cases rarely ended with actual convictions. The foundation awarded its first 3 scholarships in late September. Young entrepreneurs with solid business plans, demonstrable character, and genuine need. 2 women, 1 man, ages 24 to 29, starting businesses in sustainable agriculture, educational technology, and healthcare consulting. They attended the award ceremony at Rebecca's office. I shook their hands, explained the foundation's purpose without mentioning Milton's name. They didn't need to know the origin story. They just needed the opportunity. One recipient, Maria Sandoval, asked what inspired the foundation. "I learned that integrity matters more than family ties," I said. "Business built on dishonesty collapses. Business built on character endures. I want to support the latter." She nodded, understanding without needing details. Life continued. Real estate transactions, client meetings, property showings. I closed a significant commercial deal in October. Office complex in the Domain. 7-figure commission. The work I'd always done, uninterrupted by the months of legal and personal turmoil. Milton tried to contact me twice. Once in November, a text message I deleted without reading. Once in early December, a letter forwarded from the probation office. I held the envelope, feeling its weight, considered reading it, decided against it. Instead, I tore it in half without opening it, then in half again, and again, until it was confetti-sized pieces that meant nothing. Whatever Milton wanted to say, apology, justification, plea for reconciliation, I didn't need to hear it. The time for communication had passed. He'd made his choices. I'd made mine. We were done. I dropped the torn pieces in the trash, turned back to my desk, where a commercial property proposal awaited my signature. Through the window, Austin's skyline gleamed in December sun. Cold front coming through, temperatures dropping into the 50s. Good day for business. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered. Client calls come from all sources. DeWitt Owens. Mr. Owens, this is Patricia Chen. I'm looking at purchasing commercial property in the warehouse district. Your name came highly recommended. Professional, steady, unchanged. I appreciate the referral. Tell me about your needs. We talked for 20 minutes. Office space for a growing tech company, specific square footage requirements, budget parameters, timeline considerations. I made notes, asked clarifying questions, scheduled a property showing for tomorrow morning. Normal. Routine. The work I'd been doing for 30 years and would continue doing until I chose to stop. When I hung up, I glanced at the trash bin where the torn letter pieces sat, then at the foundation folder on my credenza. 3 scholarship recipients, making progress. First quarterly reports showed solid business development, careful financial management, strategic growth planning. Young entrepreneurs getting their start honestly, building something real. I returned to the commercial property proposal, reading through lease terms and pricing structures. Life continuing forward, not dwelling on what had been burned away, not looking back at destruction that had been necessary and appropriate. Outside, Austin moved through its afternoon rhythms. Traffic on the streets, construction cranes dotting the skyline, the city growing and changing like it always did. I signed the proposal, filed it in the pending deals folder, and moved to the next item on my list. Work. Always work. The steady accumulation of transactions, relationships, reputation. The life I'd built over decades, protected when it was threatened, continued when the threat was neutralized. Justice served, boundaries maintained, life continuing, exactly as it should be. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.